7 seconds. Just 7 seconds. But in that tunnel, N'Golo Kanté's quiet action shattered a star's wall of arrogance and built respect in its place. No cameras were supposed to be there. The tunnel connecting the away dressing room to the pitch at Stamford Bridge was off-limits during pre-match warm-up. Security protocols. Privacy rules. The kind of space where players gather their thoughts, adjust their boots, exchange quiet words before battle. But on this particular evening in March 2019, someone broke protocol. And what happened in those 7 seconds would never be officially recorded. No footage exists. No journalists reported it. But 3 security guards, 2 physios, and 14 players witnessed something that would be whispered about in football circles for years. It started with arrogance. It ended with silence. And in between, N'Golo Kanté did what he always does. Proved that real power doesn't shout. The player's name doesn't matter. What matters is what he represented that night: ego unchecked, talent worshipped without humility, success that had convinced him he was untouchable. He was visiting Stamford Bridge with his team for a crucial Premier League fixture. A world-class midfielder. Multiple league titles. Massive transfer fee. Social media following in the millions. The kind of player whose face sold magazines and whose agent negotiated endorsement deals worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. He walked through that tunnel like he owned it. Expensive headphones. Designer tracksuit. Diamonds glinting on both wrists. That swagger that comes from being told you're exceptional since you were 15 years old. And he saw N'Golo Kanté. Kanté was sitting on an equipment crate near the tunnel wall, retying his boots. Alone. Quiet. The way he always was before matches, focused inward, preparing mentally, checking and rechecking details that most players never think about. The visiting player stopped, looked at Kanté, and made a choice. "Hey," he called out, his voice echoing in the concrete tunnel. "Kanté, right?" N'Golo looked up, nodded. That gentle smile. "Yes." "Hello? You're the guy everyone says is so humble. So nice. The perfect professional." The visiting player's tone wasn't friendly. It was mocking. Testing. The way people talk when they're looking for a reaction. Kanté's smile didn't change. "I just try to do my job." "Yeah, I've heard. You never complain. Never argue. Never talk back." The player stepped closer, his teammates watching from further down the tunnel, uncertain whether to intervene. "Must be easy to be humble when you're just average at everything, right? I mean, you're not fast. You're not strong. You can't score. You just run around." The tunnel had gone quiet. The security guard near the entrance shifted uncomfortably. A Chelsea physio stopped walking, frozen mid-step. Kanté didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. N'Golo stood up slowly. He was shorter than the visiting player by several inches. Smaller in build. Nothing physically intimidating about him. Just a man in a football kit, standing in a tunnel, looking at someone who was trying very hard to provoke him. "You're right," Kanté said softly. "I'm not the fastest. Not the strongest. I don't score many goals." The visiting player smirked, thinking he'd won. Thinking he'd gotten under the skin of this supposedly unshakable man. But, Kanté continued, his voice still quiet, still gentle, but carrying something now that made everyone in that tunnel lean closer. "I know exactly where to be. Always. And I know what you're about to do before you know it yourself." He took one step forward. Just one. Closed the distance between them by maybe 2 feet. "Tonight, when you receive the ball in the 23rd minute, your midfielder will play it to your feet 30 yards from our goal. You're going to try to turn me. You're going to drop your right shoulder, fake right, go left. It's your favorite move. You've scored 12 goals that way this season." The visiting player's smirk faltered. "But I'll be there," Kanté said, his eyes steady, his voice carrying absolute certainty. "Not beside you. Not chasing you. Already there." And I'll take the ball so cleanly you won't even feel contact. And you'll look at the referee, expecting a foul, but there won't be one. Because I don't foul. I just know. Silence. Complete silence in that tunnel. In the 67th minute, Kanté continued, "You're going to make a run. Deep. Behind our defensive line. Your winger will see it. He'll play the through ball. Perfect weight. You'll think you're in. Clear on goal. But when you take your first touch, I'll already be there. You won't hear me coming. You never do. And I'll intercept it. One touch. And we'll counter. And we'll score. And you'll wonder how I knew. How I'm always there." The visiting player's face had changed. The cocky confidence draining away like water through a sieve. His mouth opened slightly. No words came out. "That's what I do," Kanté said, his voice still soft, still kind, but carrying the weight of unshakable truth. "I'm not flashy. I don't celebrate. I don't post about it. I just know. And I'm always there. Because real strength isn't about being loud. It's about being certain." Away from the cameras, Kanté made a choice no one expected. He could have walked away. He could have let it end there. Could have made his point and left the visiting player standing in that tunnel with his ego in pieces. Instead, N'Golo did something that would define why people who really knew football understood he was different. He extended his hand. "Good luck tonight," he said simply. "You're a great player. You don't need to prove it by making others feel small." The visiting player stared at that outstretched hand. At this man who had just quietly, methodically dismantled his arrogance with nothing but calm truth, and was now offering friendship, respect, grace. Slowly, almost mechanically, he reached out and shook Kanté's hand. He started, then stopped. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "It's okay," Kanté said, still smiling that gentle smile. "Everyone gets nervous before big matches. We all deal with it differently." He picked up his water bottle from beside the equipment crate and started walking toward the pitch. Paused. Turned back. "By the way," he said, "in the 82nd minute you're going to intercept a pass in midfield. You'll have space. You'll see our left back is out of position. If you play it early, one touch outside of your foot, your striker will be through. It'll be a goal. Beautiful assist." He smiled. "Don't hesitate. Trust yourself. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Just play." And then he walked away, leaving the visiting player standing alone in that tunnel, completely transformed. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. The match started 20 minutes later. In the 23rd minute, exactly as Kanté had predicted, the visiting player received the ball 30 yards from goal. He dropped his right shoulder. Faked right. Tried to go left. N'Golo Kanté was already there. The ball was gone before the player even completed his turn. No foul. Not even contact. Just perfect positioning, perfect timing, perfect execution. The visiting player looked at the referee. No call. He looked at Kanté, already 5 yards away, passing the ball to a teammate. In the 67th minute, the visiting player made his run. Deep. Behind the Chelsea defensive line. His winger saw it. Played the perfect through ball. And as the visiting player took his first touch, N'Golo Kanté appeared, seemingly from nowhere, as if he'd been waiting there all along, and intercepted it with one clean touch. Chelsea countered. They scored. The visiting player stood in the center circle during the celebration, staring at Kanté, who was jogging back to position, not celebrating, not gloating, just doing his job with the same quiet efficiency he always did. But in the 82nd minute, something changed. The visiting player intercepted a pass in midfield. He had space. He saw Chelsea's left back out of position. And he remembered what Kanté had told him in the tunnel. One touch. Outside of his foot. Early ball. His striker was through. One-on-one with the keeper. Goal. As his teammates mobbed the striker, celebrating, the visiting player looked across the pitch and found N'Golo Kanté. Found him standing near the halfway line, hands on his hips, catching his breath. And Kanté nodded. Just once. A small acknowledgement. Almost imperceptible. The visiting player nodded back. And for the first time that night, he understood what real strength looked like. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. The match ended 2-1. Chelsea won. But in the tunnel afterwards, the same tunnel where everything had started, something happened that the security guard would later tell his grandson about. The visiting player waited for Kanté. Stood by that same equipment crate, still in his sweat-soaked kit, until N'Golo came through. You were right, the player said when Kanté approached. About everything. 23rd minute. 67th minute. Even the 82nd. How do you do it? Kanté paused, considering the question seriously. I watched people. Really watch them. Not just what they do, but why they do it. Everyone has patterns. Habits. Tells. If you pay attention, really pay attention, you can see what's coming before it happens. That's not normal, the visiting player said. Most players, we just play on instinct. Reaction. I play on preparation, Kanté corrected gently. I study. Hours of film. Every opponent. Every tendency. Where they like to receive the ball. How they turn under pressure. What they do when they're tired. When you know these things, you don't have to be the fastest or the strongest. You just have to be there first. The visiting player shook his head slowly. I thought you were just lucky. That people overrated you because you won titles with Leicester and Chelsea. I thought it was. I don't know. Right place, right time. It is right place, right time, Kanté said with that gentle smile. But it's not luck. It's preparation meeting opportunity. Every time. He started to walk away again, then stopped. Reached into his kit bag and pulled out something small. A folded piece of paper. Here, he said, handing it to the visiting player. I wrote this down during warm-ups. After our conversation in the tunnel. The player unfolded it. His hands trembled slightly. It was a detailed breakdown of his own game. Tendencies. Patterns. Weaknesses. But also strengths. Areas where he was genuinely exceptional. Written in neat handwriting with specific timestamps and situations. At the bottom, in the same neat script. You don't need arrogance to be great. Greatness speaks for itself. Trust your preparation. Respect your opponents. Let your work do the talking. You made this? The visiting player's voice cracked slightly. For me? You reminded me of someone, Kanté said quietly. A younger version of myself. When I first came to England, I thought I had to prove myself every second. Had to show everyone I belong. It made me anxious. Made me play worse. Then a teammate told me, stop performing. Start working. It changed everything. He looked at the paper in the visiting player's hands. You're already great. You don't need to convince anyone. Just do the work. Help your team. The rest takes care of itself. The visiting player folded the paper carefully, like it was something precious. Why help me? I was horrible to you in the tunnel. Because, Kanté said simply, that's not who you really are. You were scared. Nervous about playing at Stamford Bridge, about facing us, about living up to expectations. Fear makes people do things that aren't them. I don't judge people by their worst moments. I judge them by what they do after. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. 18 months later, that visiting player gave an interview. When asked about turning points in his career, he pulled out a folded piece of paper from his wallet. Worn at the edges. Carried everywhere. N'Golo Kanté gave me this, he said to the camera. After a match where I tried to humiliate him, and he responded by teaching me what real strength looks like. 7 seconds in a tunnel. That's all it took. 7 seconds of quiet truth that changed everything. The paper still had Kanté's handwriting. The breakdown. The advice. The kindness. I used to think being great meant being loud. The player continued, making sure everyone knew I was the best. But Kanté taught me something that night. The greatest players don't announce themselves. They just show up. Exactly where they need to be. Exactly when it matters. He refolded the paper carefully. I keep this with me. Every match. Every day. Because I never want to forget what he showed me, that you can win without making others lose. That you can be strong without being loud. That the real measure of greatness isn't how you destroy your opponents, but how you lift them up after. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. The security guard who witnessed that tunnel moment retired 3 years later. At his farewell party, someone asked him about his favorite memory from 20 years at Stamford Bridge. 7 seconds, he said without hesitation. Watching the quietest man I ever met teach the loudest lesson I ever heard.